friends. I hope everyone is doing well today. We are having some crazy spring weather here in Colorado, which is pretty typical, I guess, actually. But my allergies are pretty atrocious right now, so if I sound congested, I apologize. That's why. Alright, everyone. Well, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Marie. I am a mostly self-taught multimedia artist sharing my artist journey, and today I thought I would actually go into depth on my artist journey, just kind of how I got to where I am now and what I've learned along the way. And then I'm also going to share with you guys the time-lapse process of my latest illustration that I did with alcohol markers. I'm really happy with how this one turned out, so I hope you guys enjoy watching. Alright, let's get set up. These are the materials I used for this drawing. I've been using the Arteza Everblend alcohol markers to color. I really have been liking how these markers look. My only complaint about them is that they don't have a brush tip like the Copics and a lot of other alcohol markers do, but I've still been really enjoying them. I've also been using them on mixed media paper instead of on marker paper, which is probably not great for the longevity of the markers, but I really like how much more saturated they come out and how well they blend on the mixed media paper. And then I've also been using the white Jelly Roll pens and a white Caran d'Ache Luminance pencil for highlights. So like I said, today I want to talk a little bit about my art journey. I think for me, my journey started when I was a little kid, which is probably true for a lot of artists. But I loved creating as a kid. I would get up early to draw, sculpt, paint, whatever, you name it. But I didn't really know that I wanted to be an artist when I was really little, mostly because I didn't think it was a real job. I think I actually wanted to be a vet because I loved animals, which I obviously still do. That's why I draw them all the time. When I started getting older, though, I really started considering a career in art. I think the first thing I actually thought about was being a book illustrator because I was a pretty avid reader from a young age. And then by the time I got into middle school, I was really into anime and manga, so I wanted to be a manga artist, but that did not last for very long. While I was really interested in art, my junior high and high school did not have any real art classes, but my dad was really into art when he was younger, so he was super supportive of me learning. He used to buy me all sorts of art books and materials, so I kind of taught myself how to do art while I was in school. Around this time, a website called DeviantArt was really popular. I'm probably really dating myself by mentioning that, but I followed a lot of black and white portrait artists on there, so I got really into hyperrealism, and I started doing a lot of black and white portraits. Unfortunately, because of this, I didn't really know what the fundamentals of drawing were because I was really just copying pictures as best I could, which I now know many years later is very different than learning how to actually draw. I started using the grid method for my drawings, which I would actually continue using for a long time, and if you are a younger artist or earlier on in your art journey and you're listening to this, I would really recommend not using that method, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is in a different video, but really it just doesn't teach you how to actually draw. It really only teaches you how to copy photos, so if you ever want to draw without having to directly, completely copy a picture, I would recommend learning how to draw using volumetric shapes instead of copying the grid method, and I really wish I would have known that a lot sooner. But anyways, so at that time I was mostly using graphite and charcoal for my drawings. Around the end of high school, I did also start to get into some other mediums, especially colored pencil. I started experimenting with a little bit of painting and markers, but I mostly was sticking with graphite at that point. I also started getting really into tattoos around this time. I actually got my first tattoo when I was 17, which I designed myself, and I'll try and show that here too. But I just really love tattoos. I was surrounded by a lot of people that had them. I was always into a little bit more of that alternative style, so I was really fascinated by them, and I thought that I wanted to go into tattooing after high school. My parents, however, were definitely not supportive of that. They really wanted me to go to college because I was also really academically motivated when I was younger. I was really good at math and science, and I enjoyed them. So we kind of compromised, and I went to a university, but I declared art as my major. And I actually went to CU Boulder for my first year of college, which I think was a big mistake in the long run. That's kind of where my parents really wanted me to go. and I just did not enjoy my time there. I didn't feel like I really learned anything in any of my classes, especially my art classes. I had like one friend the whole time I was there, and I just really did not fit in with the environment of the school. For those of you that don't know, it's like a really big party school, and I just wasn't really doing that at that time in my life. So I ended up transferring schools, and I took a year off in between that to like work and save up some money. And during that time, I took one oil painting class at a community center near where I was living, and I really loved that class. I learned so much. I had so much fun with it. So when I went back to school, I went to a commuter college that I actually ended up liking a lot more, and I made oil painting my focus. But I still kind of had the same issue where I just felt like I wasn't learning a ton in a lot of my classes, and because I transferred, I ended up having to repeat a lot of classes basically. I also felt a lot of pressure to get really good grades while I was in college because I had been like a 4.0 student my whole life. And I was also working and trying to support myself and just had a lot of stuff going on kind of in my personal life. And the combination of all those things ended up just taking like a really big toll on both my mental and physical health. So after a year there, I ended up dropping out of college for good. So that's why you'll hear me describe myself as like a mostly self taught artist, because I did technically take art classes, although I do feel like at the level of classes I was taking, I did not learn a whole ton in them. So most of the art education I've gotten has been completely like self directed on my own. And then around the time that I dropped out of college, I actually got my first real commission. It was just somebody I knew, a friend of theirs, was looking for a portrait of their dog that had recently passed away, and that friend suggested they go through me. I had done very little animal drawing up to that point. I think I had done like one colored pencil drawing of a tiger. But like I've said previously, I really loved animals. I was actually working at a doggy daycare during that time, and I loved that job. So I was really excited by the opportunity to get to draw somebody's dog for them. And then getting paid to do a drawing was a very new experience for me, and I was so excited, and I was like, this is great. This is what I want to do now. And it sent me down this whole rabbit hole actually of like finding other pet portrait artists, and then I found that colored pencil pet portraits was a really big thing, and I've always loved color, and I had done a little bit of work with colored pencils before. So I became really focused on learning how to draw realistic animals with colored pencils. So I started doing that, and I did that kind of on and off for quite a few years, drawing both like pet portraits for commissions and then just doing wildlife art that I would try and sell as prints. I changed jobs during that time and got like a serious office job. So I was just really doing art on the side, and then it got to the point where work was taking up so much of my like mental energy. I honestly really just stopped drawing at all for quite a while. And then right after lockdown, I ended up quitting my office job so I could move in with my boyfriend, my now fiance. And during that time, we kind of made a group decision that it would be a good time for me to focus more on my art. So I didn't end up going back to work full time. I actually worked part time for quite a while, doing various jobs once kind of restrictions lifted. But at that time, I realized like I just wasn't enjoying doing pet portraits the way I used to. I was still doing them, but it was still definitely just a lot of that same copying from pictures, and I wasn't really feeling like that sense of creative fulfillment that I had gotten from art when I was younger, and that was like the whole reason I went into art in the first place. So I realized that I still wanted to be an artist, but I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do. I just knew I kind of wanted to get away from realism. I still had tattooing in the back of my mind, like that had still just been something that had really stuck with me, and I had gotten a lot more tattoos by that point. But the issue was I realized like the kind of tattooing I wanted to do, or like the work that artists would want to see in my portfolio, was definitely not the kind of work I had been doing. And more importantly, I did not really know how to make that kind of work because I just didn't know how to actually like draw from scratch. So I realized at that point the best thing I could do was teach myself how to draw, and that ended up being so much harder than I thought it would. Unlike when I was younger and the internet really was just not what it is today, and it felt like it was really hard to find resources, I kind of had the opposite problem where there were so many resources that I didn't know which ones were good. So I really struggled just finding out where to start, and then I felt like I just didn't know anything. So that was really discouraging, and by that point I was like 25, and I felt like I was just like too old to learn all this from scratch. I was kind of like kicking myself for leaving school. And then I ended up kind of like sliding back into doing more realism portraits just because it was like easy and I knew how to do it. But eventually I started finding really good resources and being able to teach myself a little more. So I just really started trying to learn from different books and different resources online, and then just practicing sketching a lot, like getting into the habit of sketching all the time. I'm serious, will just help you improve so much. And I know I still have a lot of learning that I feel like I have to do, and I think I still have a lot of improvement, but honestly, I feel like I've come really far. And during that process of kind of teaching myself, just with having tattooing in mind, I ended up finding a lot of tattoo artists that I thought had like really the style that I kind of imagined my art looking like. And a lot of that fell under that neo-traditional tattoo category. So I started trying to incorporate different elements of that style into my drawing, and at first it really just did not go well. I'll try and show you guys some pictures of that too here. But just that combination of like never having worked in a real style before and learning how to draw something other than realism was a huge challenge. While I was doing this, I was mostly working digitally. I started using Procreate on my iPad a lot just because I knew that that was kind of like the industry standard for tattoo artists, and that was still kind of my goal at that point, was to go into tattooing. So for the past year and a half, that's most of the art I've been doing has been that digital art, which I think has honestly helped improve my style a lot, just because you can work a little bit faster. There's a little bit less things you have to worry about working digitally. But as far as improving my actual drawing skills, I think drawing traditionally helps a lot more with that, just because it does build confidence and you can't rely on those shortcuts. And I honestly enjoy working traditionally a lot more. So even though I've done a lot of that digital art the past couple years, I'm starting to move back more into those traditional mediums. And as part of that, I'm experimenting a lot with new mediums, which is how I got introduced to these markers. And I think experimenting with new mediums really helps you grow as an artist, and it really can bring a lot of joy back into your art if you've been feeling really stagnant for a while. So that's how I got to where I am now. I don't really know going forwards what I'll do, if I'll ever end up actually pursuing tattooing. Right now, I know I'm really enjoying making and selling my original art, so I really hope to continue doing that, but who knows what the future holds. My biggest takeaway from this, and what I hope your takeaway is as well, is that the artist's journey is not always linear. There's not just one path to go down, and also you can change your path or learn something new at any point. Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching. If you like this drawing and you want your own print or merchandise with it on there, I should hopefully have it up in my shop by the time I post this video, so I'll go ahead and post that link below if you want to check it out. Otherwise, if you enjoyed watching, please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more, and then you can also find me on Instagram at rachel.marie.art. Alright, see you next time!